Joining me now, a member of the House Oversight Committee, and our good friend, Democratic Congressman from California, Robert Garcia. He also sits on the Homeland Security Committee. And hey, he is the newly elected Democratic Caucus Leadership Representative. So congrats on that vote of confidence from your colleagues. But let's get into this. Is your GOP colleague, Marjorie Taylor Greene, in position to help Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy's goal of slashing federal spending and regulations? Because isn't Congress in charge of controlling the purse strings anyway?
Yeah, I mean, look, the only maybe positive news of Marjorie Taylor Greene leading anything is that she's the most incompetent member of Congress, the most unserious member of Congress. And so she will be completely ineffective in doing anything. She certainly is as a member of the Oversight Committee, which I serve with her on. And I'll tell you, you may know this, Alex, I'm the only member of Congress that sits on the exact same three committees as her. So I spend more time with her in committees than anybody else in Congress. There couldn't be anybody worse. And so putting her on charge of anything is such a joke, especially a committee that whose whole intention is essentially to damage the government, to damage services, to ensure that people that are dependent on government services don't receive them. And I know that Marjorie, I'm sure, is just very excited about actually hurting people. It's really unfortunate this is happening, but I'm not too worried about somebody that can barely legislate being put in charge of anything. Okay,
but for the sake of legislation, would you be willing to make it a fourth and join that subcommittee?
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking about it, about joining that committee. We're going to have Democrats on that committee, but it certainly ain't going to be to help Marjorie Taylor Greene. It's going to be to push back on all of her BS, on all of the craziness that Donald Trump is going to try to impose on our federal agencies. And let's be clear, when people say they want to eliminate the Department of Education, what they're talking about is eliminating educational support for children with special needs. What they're talking about is removing counselors in our schools across the country. What they're talking about is making sure that our classrooms don't get modernized with air conditioning and support for teachers. So this is just completely insane talk. They're talking about doing things like taking away services from veterans who need them, from our nation's educators. Imagine the post service, which needs investment, actually having less support to get America's mail and information across the country. So we've got to fight back. Certainly, I'm considering being one of the Democrats on that committee, but we'll wait and see what our leader, Jamie Raskin, decides to do.
So this week, Donald Trump confirmed his plans to declare a national emergency and to use the U.S. military to help carry out mass deportations. Okay, exact details are still unclear, but not all Republicans even support that approach. Take a listen.
I think what I would do if I were in charge of the immigration situation would be to first to go after those who have committed crimes. I think if we start there, we'll be fine. I'm not in favor of sending the Army in uniforms into our cities to collect people. I think it's a terrible image, and that's not what we use our military for. We never have, and it's actually been illegal for over 100 years to bring the Army into our cities.
Are Senator Paul's sentiments widespread among your colleagues, even other Republicans? I mean, how do you envision the president-elect intends to use the military to carry out his mass deportation plans?
It's crazy to say that Rand Paul is right, but he's correct there. I mean, the truth is that imagine our law enforcement agencies across the country, which are already, by the way, there's a law enforcement shortage across the country. Imagine them, instead of giving traffic tickets, instead of coming to support someone that has a 911 call, instead of them going out to check on a local burglary that may have happened at a small business, they're being rerouted to go round up the men and women that are in our kitchens, making our food at our favorite diner, that are cleaning our hotel rooms when we go visit a restaurant or another location with our family, the people that are helping us maybe in our homes or taking care of our kids, the people that are picking our crops so we can actually have a Thanksgiving and Christmas dinner. These are the people that we are talking about rounding up and deporting and ripping them away from their families. That's what our law enforcement want to do in Donald Trump's America. So we are not going to stand for that. There are a lot of Republicans that disagree. And by the way, it is unconstitutional to do what Donald Trump is trying to do. And so we're going to push back every single step of the way. We're not going to allow Donald Trump to turn America's law enforcement agencies into his own Gestapo police. We're not going to allow that. Now, he wants to do a lot with our own military, which is shameful that he thinks he's going to send our men and women in uniform into America's cities and try to do this. So Rand Paul is right. I think a lot of bipartisanship is going to be necessary to push back on Donald Trump on this issue, but we're going to try really, really hard to ensure this doesn't happen.
Is there some more minimalistic and acceptable way to target some migrants in this country illegally, those that have been charged with crimes, as Senator Paul suggested there, without sweeping measures that break up families and create mass fear? I mean, what do your constituents tell you they want to see happen?
I think there's two things that are important here. I think first, no one disagrees. Democrats, we all want to have a strong border that's secure, that is orderly, where there's a just and humane process at the border. We actually had a bill to do that, as you know, this last year that was bipartisan, which Republicans and Donald Trump rejected. We also understand, of course, if people are here in our country that are committing crimes, I mean, I don't care if they're a U.S. citizen, if they're a non-citizen, they're undocumented, they have to be held accountable. And of course, nobody wants to have folks that are criminals in our country, regardless of who they are. And so that no one disagrees with that. What we're talking about are the millions of people in this country who are hardworking immigrants, many of whom are undocumented, who have not been given a pathway to earn citizenship. By the way, like I was, who I earned my citizenship and was honored to do so, they haven't given that same opportunity that was given to me. And so these are the people, by the way, that are working in our restaurants and in our workplaces across the country. We got to do the better by them and by our own values of Americans. And I'll just say one more thing. Donald Trump's plans would collapse our economy. They would collapse our economy. We do not have enough workers to do these jobs. And he knows that, but he wants to create fear across the country.
California Congressman Robert Garcia, it's always good to see you, my friend. Thank you so much for weighing in. I'll see you soon.